What would you say to someone watching this to say, look, I'm a Muslim. Who are you to say your worldview is better than mine, that your God is better than mine?
Well, if I went to Saudi Arabia, I would fully expect to live under their God's rules.
Kind of a red flag. Up next, we got to talk about what, to me at least, is a kind of disturbing development in the Department of Defense, or I guess they're calling it the Department of War now, but they haven't actually changed its name officially, under a Secretary Pete Hegseth. So part of the approach they've taken since he's been put in charge is to bring back just raw lethality focus, war fighting, none of the DEI, none of the woke stuff. And to some extent, I can get on board with some of that for sure. I mean, the military should be focused on its purpose and not a million other things. But there's an aspect where it seems that they're deviating from that approach. And I have some serious concerns about, particularly the way they seem to be embracing this idea of Christian nationalism in the military, in the Department of Defense. So Pete Hegseth has started doing monthly prayer events, which is as official Pentagon events. And that itself is kind of dubious to me. Like, I do believe that we should have a secular government and not closely intertwine the state with religion. But I'm even more perturbed by the latest choice of guest speaker, or I guess the person to lead the prayer. In this case, Doug Wilson was just selected, and I'll put up the tweet here from the Department of War Rapid Response. We have gathered at the Pentagon for our monthly worship service. We are one nation under God. And then it has Doug Wilson on stage with Pete Hegseth. We actually have a clip from this to play here. Let's listen.
First of all, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for your leadership, for your mentorship, for the things you've started, the truth you've told, your willingness to be bold. It's the type of thing that we're trying to exercise here, too, with the monthly worship service, is to pause and recognize who is at the wheel, who is sovereign in all of these things, the scale and scope of which we can't possibly imagine sometimes, and outcomes we cannot foresee. But there is no plan B, only God's plan of plan A.
So I have nothing against people having their Christian faith, but it's very strange to me to see this all be done under the official specter of the Department of Defense. What it has to do with military operations and functions, I don't understand. So when you are ruthlessly gutting every mention of like black history, black service groups, all sorts of things that because of superfluous DEI emphasis, I can even get on board with that. Even the hardcore extent of some of it, where it's like, really gonna let them continue to do that thing here or there. But then you're also going to have monthly worship events. How does that fulfill the purpose of the Department of Defense? How does that focus or advance the national security? And how does that not, unless you're really going to have, and they're not, spoiler alert, like a total diversity of all representatives from every faith, how is this not violating the First Amendment and the Establishment Clause of the Constitution? I mean, our founders were pretty clear. They did not want a theocratic state. They did not want to establish one religion as the state religion. But then Pete Hegseth seems to be just so closely intertwining a particular kind of Christianity with the military. And I find that to be concerning. I don't really know another word, especially because of this Doug Wilson figure who Pete Hegseth calls a mentor. That's scary because Doug Wilson is an authoritarian radical, religious extremist, essentially. And Pete Hegseth is like, yeah, that's my mentor. I look up to him. That's concerning, and I think you'll see why. And it's not because of his private religious beliefs. I really have no issue with people having different faiths, and if they have more traditionalist beliefs and that's how they want to live their lives, that's fine by me, as long as, everyone involved is choosing to do so. The problem I have is that people like Doug Wilson they're not just trying to do it for themselves. They're trying to impose ultra-traditionalist values through the state on all of society, including extraordinarily regressive ideas. So CNN did a profile of him that was honestly quite fair. It wasn't exclusively negative. This Doug Wilson, of course, last year, I believe they did this profile, and I remember discussing it at the time, and I pulled a clip that we're going to discuss and react to because He is a Christian nationalist who openly says he wants a Christian state. So like a theocratic state, not a secular government, not a country with a separation of church of state at all, really, and not even a country that avoids establishing an official church. He wants an official church, and that to be imposed on the masses, including everything from disenfranchising women and them not having the right to vote to criminalizing being gay. All of this and more, Doug Wilson openly supports and believes in. And he doesn't even dispute that those are his views. CNN did this piece, and he didn't say, no, that's not what I believe, and no, they're lying. I don't support taking away women's right to vote or anything like that. They're like, yeah, that is what we believe. And yet you have somebody being embraced by the defense secretary and uplifted as an unofficial spokesperson for the new religious bent of the Christian Nationalist Department of Defense who holds these beliefs. That's astonishing. And has some serious ramifications for the military itself that I'll discuss as well. But first, I do want to watch this CNN piece. I pulled a clip from it that's relevant to view, again, in light of the fact that Pete Hegseth continues to uplift and associate the Department of Defense with this figure. Doug Wilson, let's listen.
Christchurch senior pastor Doug Wilson makes no apologies for his beliefs on God and country.
I'd like to see the town be a Christian town. I'd like to see the state be a Christian state. I'd like to see the nation be a Christian nation. I'd like to see the world be a Christian.
So, okay, you just don't believe in the First Amendment then? Like, you want to tear it up? Because the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment specifically says the government of America will not have an established religion, because they were specifically trying to get away from the inherent oppression of having one religion and its dictates impressed upon society through the vast power of the government. And the government's a lot more powerful now than it was back then. But these Christian nationalists essentially want to do the Middle East, but the Christian version. And let's just say this, it would work out equally well for individual liberties and even for religious freedom. Minority religions don't tend to do well in theocratic societies with an established religion, but he wants a Christian government that will impose its will that's radically out of step with most of the public. Almost none of the public supports the things he's about to espouse, but I guess we'll just have a theocratic authoritarian state, and this is Pete Hegseth's mentor. That's totally normal and not at all insane. Let's keep listening.
Be a Christian world.
And now Wilson's controversial views as a Christian nationalist are gaining sway in the nation's center of power with the recent opening of his new church and high-profile parishioners like Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth.
Is planting a church in D.C. part of your mission to try to turn this into a Christian nation?
Yes. So every society is theocratic. The only question is who's theo. In a secular democracy, it would be demos, the people. In a Christian republic, it'd be Christ.
Well, so this is not really true. Not every society is theocratic in that it imposes religion onto society through the state. You could have a society where there is not a default religion of the government, and instead people can choose and form the different religions. There can be a majority religion, and obviously that's been Christianity for Americans' history, and it will likely continue to be. But no, in fact, not all government systems are theocratic. In fact, that's what secular means when he says you have a secular government. So what he's saying is not even internally consistent. It doesn't make sense. He's conflating a government that reflects the will of the people as if that's the same as a theocracy. It is not. That doesn't even make sense.
Well, what would you say to someone watching this and say, look, I'm a Muslim. Who are you to say your worldview is better than mine, that your God is better than mine?
Well, if I went to Saudi Arabia, I would fully expect to live under their God's rules.
Kind of a red flag when you're using Saudi Arabia, an oppressive theocratic Islamic state, as your example of like, well, would we just be like that? But for Christianity, no thanks. And once again, how is it conservative, or the people that I've heard my whole life talk about how they're constitutional conservatives and they want to preserve the American system of government and our way of life, to just like rip up the First Amendment like this and embrace Christian Sharia? I genuinely feel disoriented watching this and knowing that this person is a close ally and mentor to one of the most important people in the federal government. What is going on here?
A big focus of his Christian movement is on a patriarchal society where men are dominant and women are expected to submit to their husbands.
Women are the kind of people that people come out of.
So you just think they're meant to have babies. That's
Well,
it. They're just a vessel.
No, it doesn't take any talent to simply reproduce biologically. The wife and mother, who is the chief executive of the home, is entrusted with 3 or 4 or 5 eternal souls.
And says in his vision of a Christian society, women as individuals shouldn't be able to vote. His fellow pastors Jared Longshore and Toby Sumter agree.
There are some who have gone so far as to say that they want the 19th Amendment repealed.
I would support that. And I support it on the basis that the atomization that comes with our current system is not good for humans.
Now there's a monthly prayer service at the Pentagon, initiated by Hegseth, Wilson's highest level connection to the administration.
It's not organizationally tied to us, but it's the kind of thing we love to see.
What he also wants gone, same-sex marriage, because he thinks homosexuality is a crime.
In the late 70s and early 80s, sodomy was a felony in all 50 states. That America of that day was not a totalitarian hellhole.
So you would like America to go back to that?
Yep.
Wilson maintains his ultimate goal is to bring about the second coming of Christ through his work and rejects critics' claims he's trying to make the dystopian world of The Handmaid's Tale a reality.
I'm not a white nationalist. I'm not a fascist. I'm not a racist. I'm not a misogynist.
So the Handmaid's Tale thing is like almost always overwrought. But like in this example, it's not the craziest comparison. Just women won't be able to vote. It'll be illegal for people to be gay. We'll impose our religion through the state. Their primary role will be being the people that people come out of. I mean, it's not giving Handmaid's Tale, my dude. And again, I should reiterate that I don't have a problem with people having these traditional beliefs that they choose to apply to their own lives or their own communities of people that want to live according to them. The reason I think people like this are dangerous and radical is that they seek to impose it on all of society, and they would rip apart basic individual liberties in our constitutional order in order to do so. They're very open about it. One thing I do respect about this guy is he's upfront. He doesn't hide the ball. He doesn't kind of pretend that, oh no, I'm just, promoting this, but actually he has a long-term goal of something more sinister. He's like, no, I do want it to be illegal for people to be gay. And it once was. And of course, that's kind of a misleading statement because in the 70s, it's true that it was illegal in these states. It wasn't actually enforced in a lot of these places. And so there were definitely places where people could live and be gay and be open and not be imprisoned. But that's actually bad. It's actually wrong to lock people up for doing something that doesn't hurt anybody and is not going away and is just how they love and who their family is. That's actually, pretty sick and evil. And to suggest that should make a comeback in the 21st century is deranged and is repressive and dangerous. And he's like, whoa, and it wasn't an authoritarian hellhole back then. I mean, it was for gay people. Obviously, there's more aspects of society just than that, and it was in some ways a very free society. But to a gay person imprisoned simply for being in a romantic relationship with someone of the same sex, that's actually is an authoritarian hellhole, actually. And whatever point he's trying to make there doesn't really land for me. But connecting back, because it's really not about this Doug Wilson guy. The story here is about Pete Hegseth, who is the Defense Secretary of the United States, yet is bringing in religious extremist authoritarian speakers to promote Christian nationalism inside the military. And then how are you supposed to lead a military that includes women? I mean, he'd prefer it doesn't, but it does, whether he likes it or not, and that's not changing anytime soon. And a department that includes women and gay people, and yet you are closely aligned with, presumably in agreement with, and actively involving and embracing Christian nationalists who want women to be second-class citizens, subjugated and deprived of their right to participate in society via the democracy, yet, of course, they'll still be subject to the same burdens of it, literally take us back into decades and decades. Gay people back in the closet or to jail with you, and you're supposed to lead an agency with these people and have them trust you and rely on you while you actively want to dismantle their rights and their freedoms. That's actually really concerning. And I don't understand. I feel like this has flown under the radar a lot, but we're going to have a problem if the MAGA right decides that Christian nationalism to this authoritarian extreme, but really at all, is the future, that's going to very quickly tear apart the coalition it built with wide swaths of Americans who wanted strong borders, who wanted, an end to the excesses of woke culture and DEI and all these other things, and did not, in fact, sign up for The Handmaid's Tale. So there's a serious reckoning that needs to happen with some of what's going on here. And I feel like it's really flying under the radar, but there's a very sinister undertone to it. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Do make sure to subscribe if you aren't yet. And we'll leave it there on that one.